Greetings, Crocodile Army, and Assalamu Alaikum. I gave it a pass on making a video last week in favor of resting and getting over my jet lag. I was in United Arab Emirates again for work, Abu Dhabi specifically, a place I went 17 months ago as well, with side trips both times to Dubai. I made a video about last year's trip that I'll link below. I've spent about 2.5 weeks there total, and done quite a bit of reading about it in between, so I know a fair amount about the country. These trips have, for the most part, confirmed what those who have actually been to that part of the world have told me before, but run counter to what I'm told by others who rarely venture far from home. I've made friends with some UAE residents, including a couple native Emiratis, and I know them well enough to ask some questions about their religion and culture. Some of the answers surprised me, but at least one of them probably shouldn't have. I asked whether there are any Muslims who just consider themselves culturally Muslim, or don't go to a mosque regularly, or aren't really that interested in religion, as with many Christians. My friends thought that was kind of funny that I would assume there might not be, but they said, well, of course, it's not unusual at all, there are lots of Muslims like that. In hindsight, it was a bit silly for me to have that stereotype. I also asked about taqiyya, which is the practice of lying about your faith for self-preservation. Some people have used this concept to say that it's a central tenet of Islam for Muslims to move to non-Muslim countries and lie about their peaceful intentions. Then they're supposed to kill people or blow stuff up or somehow wage jihad. When I asked my Arab friends about this, they said that taqiyya just means that if your life is threatened, you're allowed to lie about your religion. Of course, some will say, well, yeah, that's what they have to say, because otherwise it's not taqiyya. This is, of course, a perfect conspiracy theory, because even if a Muslim does nothing violent and states opposition to violence, they can never prove that they're not lying about it. Apparently they're all just waiting to strike until we least expect it. A longtime Facebook friend, who I always got along well with, and at least used to enjoy my videos, decided recently to devote much of her Facebook wall to posting statuses criticizing Islam, often several per day, starting a few weeks ago. I found the focus to be a little puzzling, since they seem to be just everything about how Islam and Muslims are wrong and bad. Just to be clear, my view on Islam is that it's just as nonsensical as any other religion. How it's actually practiced in some Islamic cultures is far worse than just nonsense, to the point of hideous. But there are huge differences between different Muslim countries and the level of independence and freedom that they have. Whether the Quran literally says one particular thing or another isn't of much consequence to me, as individual actions speak much louder. I strongly suspect that if Christian and Muslim countries reversed geography, that we'd be complaining about how those Christians in those poor third world countries are still stoning their disobedient children like the Bible tells them to, along with every other barbaric piece of advice that Christians have largely discarded. Female genital mutilation and accusations of witchcraft in some Christian countries in Africa seem to indicate that. Poverty and hopelessness are the best friends that religious extremism have. Every culture or religion looks like a monolith from a distance, but you'd have to be willfully ignoring the differences to not even examine them and completely miss them. There are significant pockets of violent extremism in Islam, and those pockets are larger than the extremist pockets of other religions, partly for the reasons I already outlined. It's also true that most Muslims do not enjoy violence, and you don't have to take my word for that. When ISIS, or whatever we're calling the Sunni Muslim extremist group today, swept across Syria and Iraq, millions of people fled their homes rather than being taken over by them. This wasn't some mere difference in religion, as the ones who fled were primarily Muslims, both Sunni and Shia. Saudi Arabia, who runs a very oppressive Sunni Muslim country, and United Arab Emirates, who run a comparatively very open Sunni Muslim country, are both helping us bomb ISIS. UAE's first female Air Force pilot has even been bombing them. Turkey is also helping. Consider that the next time someone tries to downplay the differences between Muslims, or tell you that moderates don't matter. Does Christian biologist Ken Miller not matter just because the Westboro Baptist Church exists? Over the course of a couple weeks, I touched on some of these points while discussing Islam on the Facebook wall I mentioned, but then I asked how she believed I should treat individual Muslims. She said she had no particular answer to that, expressed irritation at merely being questioned, and then unfriended me a couple comments later. I've made videos opposing all religions here on my channel for 5 years now, but I will never lump over 1 billion people into the same category of extremists just for some kind of ideological purity that doesn't exist in reality and will serve only to promote prejudice. Most of you watching this right now want religion to disappear, as do I, but it never will if we don't bother to understand the geopolitics and culture surrounding it. If the atheist community decides that the only voices they want are people whose main intellectual contribution is telling you the Muslims are coming to get us, that's the day I just give up and start making cat videos. But I don't think that's where we are. I think we're smart enough to tell who is truly a threat and oppose those people without fomenting hatred toward those who don't deserve it. But what do you think?
Then again, the cats aren't terribly cute, aren't you, Mojo? Yeah, it's a nice kitty.